Nintendo stuff. Welcome to Nintendo Stuff, episode 76. My name is Brandon Miracle here at the Break Room Arcade, and I am joined by none other than Paul Anderson and Logan Welliver. Yeah.
Hey.
Steve really got you last week, didn't he?
It's good to have done this now 2 weeks in a row. Look at us.
It's a new record. New record.
You know what? I have to give us some credit, though. Like, before this year and the pandemic, we had done like 150 some odd podcasts, barely ever missing a week. So good job, us.
We gave ourselves a break this year. Little one. Just vacation, you know?
Yeah.
That and we were too stubborn to go back to this format.
Yeah,
But
there was
here we are
that.
now.
It was a little sad to finally get that rad new setup. We spent all this money on this A10 Mini, and we were so excited to use it, and we got to do it once. But we'll get back to that eventually. It's still good that we can do this at all, especially when super exciting things happen, such as what happened last night. The Game Awards 2020, their first virtual-only show, and just right off the bat, I think for being virtually produced and, you know, having Jeff Keighley on kind of a silent stage, it wasn't that bad. I think it was a good old, you know, it was a good old college try as far as production goes. There wasn't really anything that stood out to me as bad, except for, like, the individual cameras of some of the people who joined, like Reggie in his gamer headset.
You can tell, like, of the people there who had, like, personal budgets and who didn't.
Mm-hmm. One that especially stands out for me is there was the one where the guy had his neighbor standing outside of his window, so they were socially distanced.
I love the one with the phone, the Among Us crew.
Oh yeah, that was cute. But as far as the awards part in regards to Nintendo only took home one award, and it was the Nintendo category, Best Family Game.
It was the Nintendo is going to win this award.
Basically, and a surprise to nobody, Animal Crossing New Horizons took that. So congratulations.
It deserved something.
Absolutely. I still think, like, it's not fair to just look at who the winners are, because being nominated is a high honor in itself. So for Animal Crossing to be up against games like Final Fantasy VII Remake, The Last of Us Part 2, and Ghost of Tsushima and Hades is really impressive, and that shouldn't be understated. And all of those games are incredibly fantastic pieces of work, so I feel like people forget that.
It's fun, like, taking a step back and looking at all of our nominees for Game of the Year, just to see just how many incredible games came out this year. It's no wonder I didn't get to all of them.
Like, despite, you know, all of the global issues that we've dealt with in, like, terms of the pandemic and other things, you know, even with all the delays and stuff for games that would have come out this year's list of, like, games is incredible. It's absolutely stellar what came out this year. But the Game Awards isn't just about awards and looking back on the previous year. It's also about looking forward. And Nintendo told us ahead of time that they were going to be revealing the third fighter in Fighter Pass 2 at the Game Awards. And it was literally the first announcement once the actual ceremony started. And it was none other than Sephiroth, the villain from Final Fantasy VII, which I was not prepared for. It's funny because, like, I worked on a video with Roger back in April, and it was right after Final Fantasy VII Remake came out, and his, like, big prediction was that Sephiroth was going to come to Smash, and then we were going to get some, like, Tifa and Barrett Mii Fighter costumes. That still remains to be seen, but
Doubt that.
yeah, but I was personally blown away because my first experience with Final Fantasy VII was Remake earlier this year, and then after I beat it, I went and played literally every game in the franchise except one. It had a monumental effect on me, so this pick specifically meant a lot to me. Where do you guys stand? Because Logan, I know you've only played like some of Final Fantasy VII Remake and a little bit of the original.
Yeah, so I've played a few hours of the original. I've played a good chunk of the remake.
Over half,
which
I think.
Oh yeah, over half. I'm like chapter 14 or something like that. I haven't got a while because I got stuck at a part. I got on the struggle bus and I haven't gotten off yet. I don't know. I think this was good. I think it was good because I don't think anybody was anticipating Sephiroth.
No.
No, I mean, certainly like it was in the cards in terms of what characters possibly could come to Smash Bros. Though, okay, so there's two things. Before the show, some of the big predictions were Master Chief and then Jonesy from Fortnite, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people were expecting that kind of stuff.
Looking squarely at those characters.
Yeah, and then secondly, of all the third parties, like I'm pretty sure, I'm trying to think, but of all the third parties, I'm pretty sure this is the only character that we've gotten who's like a second character from a specific franchise.
If we're talking about DLC and third party specifically, I think that is true. We did get Ken as an Echo Fighter for Ryu.
Well, yeah, but that's an Echo Fighter, right?
It's also across two different games.
Well, this is true.
Yeah.
But like, okay, two original characters from the same series, right? Not just two characters who are pretty much the same character, right? So, and also another villain, right? You know, we've always talked about how kind of villains are underrepresented in Smash Bros. So getting a character who is so notorious, who's a villain, and also just kind of like something that we didn't expect, because we got Steve from Minecraft. Right, that was the last character we got. It's like one of the biggest characters they could have dropped, and so I think people were anticipating more of that. But they swung the other way. It's not like Final Fantasy is terribly niche or anything like that. But it's also one of those things like, okay, we already had Cloud, we already had like all these other things going for it. So I think it was like unexpected for a lot of people, and that just made it that much better. Outside of it just being like a really, really popular character in the series and in gaming in general, to see somebody such an iconic villain land itself, in this game.
I would argue that Sephiroth is like the first like prolific video game villain. Maybe next to Ganondorf, but like when I think of villains who are just absolutely dastardly, and the video game scene, Sephiroth is like when that started happening. When you eventually get through Final Fantasy VII Remake and the original, you'll realize just how terrible of a person Sephiroth is.
Wait, so are you saying that Bowser isn't a dastardly villain? Kidnapping a princess? Like all those different times?
Bowser's also been a hero multiple times.
I mean, when has Bowser tried to like do anything other than kidnap the princess? Has he ever tried to like destroy the world?
His worst offense, I think, was trying to build a galactic empire and rule the universe. But still,
he wasn't trying to destroy that either, though.
Right, he wasn't trying to destroy it. He was just trying to own it. Sephiroth is a very different beast. I I absolutely adored how they introduced him by having him literally slice Gleam in half. Characters like Kirby, Palutena, and Bayonetta, who are considered like the strongest characters canonically in the Smash universe, couldn't take down Gleam, and here comes Sephiroth and takes Gleam down in one shot.
This is some Dragon Ball stuff right here. Right?
Yeah, I saw some reactions.
It's a new arc.
Goku.
It's a new arc, and here's the next rival, right? And quite literally, okay, we gotta fight him. You know, it would also be cool, like, you know, I've heard people talking about, oh, what if Sephiroth was also like a boss, right? They have that little tease at the end, which was probably to me his
Final Smash.
A tease as Final Smash.
He
but
turned
I think
Rainbow
it would be
too.
cool. Yeah. But it would be cool if we also got, like, I don't know, maybe a little bit of a content update. In terms of like,
I've been thinking about that. Like, Sakurai hasn't been above like changing spirit battles once we have Mii fighters or Mii fighter costumes that are essentially the character. That was an update just a few patches ago. So I think what's going to happen, you're on the right track, because I'm pretty sure that, like, for Cloud's what do you call it, classic mode, they're going to exchange his final boss fight for a fight with Sephiroth. Rather than,
I mean, that would be the most, like, thematically appropriate thing you could do.
Yeah, it would honestly be disappointing if they didn't. One of the other aspects of this that I want to bring up is Final Fantasy's just overall representation in Smash Brothers, and the fact that there are 2 songs, 2, compared to SNK's like 50 plus.
Oh my god!
Yeah, and there's no spirits other than Cloud. So this
here's an asset that you may use for your video game.
That's what it feels like. But like, this trailer was so above and beyond, especially in the CG department and the fan service. I know you guys haven't seen Advent Children, but the fight between Cloud and Sephiroth in the second half of the trailer is beat for beat lifted from the movie. Like, they recreated it in Smash Brothers. So like, these are deep cuts, and they're putting a lot of production into it. So I feel like when Sephiroth comes out, hopefully next week, that he's going to come with more tracks than we're used to, and I would hope like an entire set of spirits like every other DLC gets.
I mean, maybe this is what they were waiting for, you know, kind of holding back on a lot of the content with our boy Cloud, and waiting for the inevitable day when Sephiroth, you know, comes to Smash, which
they're
is
waiting for the remake
like
to finish so they could give him better assets.
2035.
Good God.
Paul, do you have any experience with Final Fantasy VII?
Not yet. I think this is the fire under my butt to start playing it as soon as I finish Kakarot.
Definitely, like, remake the next one, because
I think that's kind of my plan, though I am still sitting in the middle of Dragon Quest.
Oh, that's true. Man, you got 2 incredible RPGs to play at the same time.
I know. That's why I've been playing Kakarot, so I don't have to think about it. I can just coast. But I have kind of like expedited that game so I can hopefully get into the remake faster. But
yeah, and oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, despite not knowing much about him, like, that trailer sold me on him. Like, right out of the gate, cutting Gleam in half, like, really sets the precedent that, like, this guy's bad.
Yeah,
but like, rad bad.
With a comically long sword.
That they actually use really well with that little Mario bit.
Yeah. Oh my God,
Someone had to bring that up.
That bit broke the internet.
It was so good. Also, poor Mario though. Like, that guy cannot catch a break in these.
He dies in like every one of these reveals. I mean, dies, right? They act like they kill Mario at one point or another.
Santi,
They need to keep it going.
Santi mentioned in the chat that Sephiroth's sword is actually half its canonical length in the game.
Oh,
So,
in
Smash
wait,
Brothers.
wait. Oh, in Smash Brothers, like his actual character model and whatnot.
So in actual Final Fantasy VII, Sephiroth's sword is twice the length it is that you're seeing it in Smash Brothers.
So
So-
it's more akin to the actual like the trailer, right? Where he stabs Mario and it's like
Yeah,
kind of like stretching across
They
the screen.
nerfed it.
Yeah.
they nerfed Sephiroth's sword. And Cool Austin mentioned in the chat that Mr. Sakurai is doing a Mr. Sakurai Presents Sephiroth next Thursday on the 17th. So it won't be long before we get all our answers, like a close look at his moveset, as well as the part that I might strangely be more excited about in the interim, which is the Mii Fighter costumes. I've gotten really, really into the Mii Fighter costumes, especially with Fighters Pass 2. Because they've been doing some really cool stuff. Like, we got Sans with Megalovania. We got Cuphead with a track from that. I think the most recent one was a full-body Bomberman suit. So, I don't know. Like, what's next? That's always something to look forward to. We got Vault Boy from Fallout.
This is how we get Master Chief.
If this is how we get Master Chief, there will be a lot of tears. And I might be
I
among
will
them.
drink them.
I've been seeing a lot of chatter about this, also in our own Discord. Gino, I think this might be the time that if Gino is deconfirmed, we're gonna find out next Thursday. Because I wasn't expecting another square rep that wasn't like Sora or Gino, and the fact that it's Sephiroth just tells me that
That's probably it for
they're
Square.
probably getting the axe, yeah. So hopefully, like, they don't hang that carrot in front of us. If Gino doesn't show up as a Mii Fighter costume next Thursday, I'll have more hope. But if there's any time to tell us it's not happening, it's absolutely right now. There's a lot of people's hearts on the line here.
I mean, this is the part where like it's starting to get difficult because especially after Steve, anything feels possible.
Yeah.
And now there's only 3 chances left for the impossible to become possible. So who's going to get it?
That's what it's going to come down to. And like
Monster Hunter.
I really hope so. I saw a lot of reactions where that first opening shot of the World of Light looked like Monster Hunter, and I thought the same thing. And I was like, oh my god, it's happening. Only to then be quickly disappointed, and then for that to completely turn on its head once Sephiroth showed up. Cool Austin also mentions that Banjo-Kazooie, Terry, and Byleth Amiibo are coming out on March 26th, 21. So if you want those, now's the time to pre-order. Assuming
I'm really excited for my Byleth Amiibo.
I am super looking forward to Banjo and Kazooie because that Amiibo looks so good. He's standing on a Jiggy. It's so cool.
That reminds me, I need to message my wife real quick and see if we pre-ordered that one.
I expect
To
these
this
to
Because I
date-
also wanted that one.
To this date, I only have Animal Crossing Amiibo. I have like a whole like slew of Animal Crossing Amiibo. I think I'm missing like Digby and then maybe one other.
They didn't make like a ton of those, but also I think the ones they did make were like the popular choices. But then
Yeah. It's like Tom Nook, Timmy and Tommy, Cyrus, and
multiple outfits for Isabelle.
oh yeah, like there was like I think a few Isabels. I think some of the Smash Bros ones though,
Hey, Moose Man.
I might pick up at some point, but
Yeah,
you know,
We did
I
not
think
pre-order Banjo-Kazooie.
I feel
That is
like
a
at this
mistake.
point they are
Yes.
making
Yes, it is.
Amiibo because technically all these games still support it. But they're also like collectibles, right? And
They're
especially
leaning
for
into
like
that more.
Smash Bros, right?
Yeah.
Less of hey, these are totally gonna go with everything that you do. It's a lot more selective.
I
And
didn't
who
get the
knows how-
Joker amiibo for functionality. I got it because it's cool.
Oh, I mean,
I got it
they're
'cause
good
Persona.
figures.
Where's the
There's
hero?
like
Oh,
I know
like,
you
I mean,
can't-
I
I know you're not
didn't-
gonna. I was gonna say you can't just pull out Joker and not pull out hero.
I didn't buy all these Animal Crossing amiibo because I was like, oh, these are gonna work well with, you
This is
know,
my favorite amiibo.
New Horizons. Especially if I did want functionality, I would go with the amiibo cards, right? But I
Sure.
bought them because they're good figures. And I love Animal Crossing.
Santi
See, I
pointed
didn't-
out that we're going to get a Sephiroth amiibo, and that made me ascend even higher than I already had.
I hope his sword is actual, like the canon length. For
That
the
would be
amiibo.
so funny. Like it's poking out of the packaging when you buy it.
They make special packaging just for him.
We're also ignoring like possibly the most important thing about Sephiroth coming to Smash, and that's that he has 2 shirtless outfits.
Yes, represent.
And he's so chiseled. He's
Yeah,
also
that's like goals, right?
yeah. He's also wearing 2 belts, not 1, 2 belts.
Is that canon?
It
I
is
think
now.
I think they're trying to tell us something. He's packing. He needs the 2 belts.
The sword is a double meaning. So yeah, make sure to tune in to Mr. Sakurai Presents next Thursday. We will definitely be talking about that probably on Friday again, just because that's when we're all available. But that's not the only stuff that came out for Nintendo during the Game Awards. And let me open up my tab that has
Tabby
it all
boys.
listed. Kind of a surprise announcement was Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection coming to Switch on February 25th. And I'm still not entirely certain if this is a remake or not.
I mean, to me, it looked like, it could be like a sequel. Here on IGN, it says it's a reboot. Because it feels like there's a lot of things they're doing that they couldn't have done.
Yeah.
Like with the NES and the SNES titles. I'm trying to think of anything else. It looks like there's Ultimate Ghosts and Goblins for the PSP.
That I
there was
believe is a remake.
Ooh.
I guess it'd be weird to remake the same game twice.
Yeah, I'm trying to see.
Whoops.
Yeah, I can't find anything here that says whether it's a remake or not. But again, like it seems like it's like pushing it forward and saying like, hey, this is something new.
It's definitely like an evolution.
Though
Reimagining, maybe.
That might be more accurate.
yeah, at the very least. I was really digging this one because it didn't look quite as difficult as some of those original NES games, which is good. But I also really dug the visual style that they were going for. Like
Yeah,
it
it's
still
super unique.
remained like true to the series. But also obviously just didn't pull like a Mega Man like 9 and 10, you know.
It has almost like a
here's the
paper
original
cutout kind of
graphics.
feel to it, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, I wish there was more here that I could find about it. It's mostly just articles right now. But I mean, it comes out pretty soon. Comes out
February 25th. Yep.
Yeah. So, I don't know if I'll pick this up yet. I hope it's good though. This is such a weird. This is such a weird series to revisit because it's not like one that like people are clamoring for. It's not
Yeah.
one that people are like, oh my god, bring back Ghosts and Goblins. Which I guess in a sense kind of makes it cooler, right? That they're willing to actually dedicate some stuff to this series. Yeah, everywhere I see it just says it's a reboot, right? So
Mhm.
I would doubt that this is just a remake of the original game. That they're doing some new stuff here. I'm also seeing stuff about the series just being notoriously difficult, and I think that they might stick with that. Though maybe hopefully it's a little more fair than NES games
It's
once upon a
kind of
time.
baked into the series identity, much in the way it is for something like Dark Souls or Mega Man.
Right.
Santi mentions that the only love that the series gets these days is Arthur being in Marvel vs. Capcom. So I guess like if you're a Ghosts and Goblins fan, this is kind of a big deal because this has been dormant for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
There was another
year for it.
game. What'd you say, Paul?
Interesting year for it.
Yeah, for sure. Another game that really caught my eye was Sea of Solitude, the director's cut. I did not know about this game before the director's cut was announced. Had either of you?
No, I looked it up afterwards, and it seems like it was released like mid 2019, for like PC and probably some other platforms. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, no, I agree. I liked what I saw of this. So
Yeah, it has a really like distinct visual identity with this girl who also has feathers. I don't really know what's
Crow Girl.
going on.
Crow Girl.
Crow Girl? Yeah,
Crow
I guess
Girl.
so. That's her name until we know what it is. Or maybe forever. But that is coming out in March, I believe. March 4th. And it's Switch exclusive, is it not?
The director's cut is. Though I do anticipate that like eventually that this will make its way to
yeah.
other platforms. Usually does. I mean, even like some of the Switch exclusive, a lot of exclusives nowadays lean towards more timed exclusives, they launch on one platform and then make their way over to others.
We gotta share our love,
For sure.
I think
Everybody
honestly
gets
one of
some.
the most interesting things about this was that one of the developers, or no, it's published
By
by
Quantic Dream?
Quantic Dream.
Yeah, that really stood out to me.
Quantic Dream. I was like, okay, this doesn't look like David Cage work, because I don't think it is David Cage work, which honestly is probably a good thing, because David Cage tends to be a little bit obtuse. This was a nominee for Games for Impact at the Game Awards 2019.
Oh, okay.
So
It definitely
seems
looks
like
like it leans more into like speaking on like a mental issue or something like that. I don't know the exact theming of it, but I do.
yeah,
like
I mean, even the
stuff
name
that
kind
like
of
that.
implies something like that.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely want to give this a shot. It looks like it was reviewed kind of middling to high, so maybe this director's cut was a needed update. Much in the way that New Super Lucky's Tale was for Super Lucky's Tale. And that turned out well, so I'm hopeful in this case as well. Moving on, something that I know we're all excited about. We got a new trailer for Monster Hunter Ryze. And it took until I looked on Twitter to realize that the new map they showed is actually a remake of the Flooded Forest from Monster Hunter Tri, which is awesome.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
I definitely look forward to going back there and hunting.
Yeah.
That was, I think, one of my favorite ones from Tri.
Yeah, me too. Right next to Deserted Island. This is neat too, because like with the Monster Hunter Rise gameplay mechanics, like the wire bug and the climbing, we're gonna be able to explore this old map in a brand new way. And that's really hype.
I think this is gonna be one of those stages that translates to the like open environment better than some of the other maps.
Sure.
Because we've never experienced these without the loading screens.
Honestly, thinking about something like Deserted Isle, which has that like really long wall you can climb up, I think in Area 5, and you can jump down.
Yeah.
Just like it would change the way that we traverse things that we've already traversed before, and that's exciting. Cosmic_bones in the chat mentions that we heard Kezu scream in the trailer, so the good old long electric boy's back.
Also, a personal favorite of mine, Royal Ludroth's back.
Oh yeah, that was like
Fluffy.
the best thing about this trailer for me was that Royal Ludroth is back. If you haven't, there's an extended trailer uploaded to both Nintendo and Monster Hunter. So it features more than we got in the actual Game Awards trailer. There's one segment that I noticed watching it back earlier today that I mentioned to Logan. It's called The Rampage, and it looks like it might be a new hunting quest style, or it might be like a specific like great Gen Moran style quest where like you have cannons and ballistae and stuff like that. But the cool part about it is that multiple monsters like attack the village all at once, and you have to defend it. And I think the shot they showed had 5 monsters. We never go over 3, so that's really interesting. I'm wondering how that's going to work.
I'm wondering if they scale the number of monsters to the amount of hunters you have available to you, or if they have like more NPCs that like just run back and forth with like cannonballs or something along those lines.
Or maybe like there's even a raid element to it where they increase the player count. Because previous Monster Hunters have done that. None that have been on console, but you know.
Maybe now's the time to try it.
Cosmic is mentioning that it could be a survival game mode, and honestly, I'd be really down for that. Like a tower defense mode for Monster Hunter just makes a lot of sense. If you can kill the monsters fast enough, you know, you could prevent the city from being breached. So I think there's a lot of potential there.
For sure.
Another thing I noticed earlier was that you can freely walk around the hub world, or like the hub city, just using like all of your climbing techniques and whatnot. But in addition to that, your friends are there with you. So I think they have done away with the gathering hub, and now the entire village is the gathering hub.
That just opens the doors for a lot of antics.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it like took this long. Like I'm surprised this didn't happen with World, you know. Just kind of integrating everything, just making the hub. Which is exciting because then it's a more kind of like integral experience, especially when it comes to multiplayer. Because y'all can just enter like you know, in World, you could enter like an instance of the game where technically everybody was kind of like in the same like hunting group, but you would only be able to see each other if you were in like the gathering hub.
Yeah.
So just
I'm
kind of
wondering if,
removing
like,
that.
Part of it is that one thing we can do with this game that we couldn't do with World is actually sit in the same room and play locally. That could be a feature for local multiplayer versus online, or I mean, who knows? But
it was a feature in Generations Ultimate, wasn't it?
I believe so.
I don't.
So I booted it up.
I would be shocked if they didn't have local play, because to me, the only reason that they're making this game on Switch is so that they can recapture that PSP 3DS audience. You know, kids on the schoolyard playing Monster Hunter together. So if they didn't have local play, that'd be a serious misstep.
I mean, also not to mention that, like, you know, this is one of the most popular series in Japan.
Yeah.
The attach rate in Japan and the install base for Switches in Japan is also huge.
This is printing money.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the reasons they brought it to 3DS. You know, with Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, and then Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, and then Monster Hunter Generations. So it just makes sense that it would go back, you know, to a more mobile, more social platform, that people are going to be taking these things out. Oh, we're going to be on the on the subway, with people and,
Mhm.
playing as we go, whatever. Um, Also, I like that, the fact that we could all be in the same room and not have to necessarily be online to enjoy being together,
That was one of my favorite
Um,
things with 3 and 4 is actually getting everyone together in one room and just going crazy.
Yeah, it was one of the most fun ways to hang out because like we're all playing a game that we really love. We're also making a lot of progress, um, and we just get to be in the same room and enjoy each other's company. So like
It hits
if
different.
if you've never experienced that with Monster Hunter, definitely like get some of your friends to try it out and just all get in the same room and go on some quests together. Even if you don't know what you're doing, I swear to you that you're gonna have a good time. And honestly, you don't have to wait too long because in January we're getting the first demo for Monster Hunter Rise. I am so excited
Yes.
to play this game. This got leaked in the recent Capcom leak, but I'm glad that we got the confirmation. Um, and if you haven't played a Monster Hunter demo before, they typically go one of two ways. Uh, they're like Monster
Easy,
Hunter
medium,
World.
hard.
Exactly. Like they typically have 3 different hunts that you can do, ranked via difficulty. Typically, like the first 2 hunts are old monsters, and then the third one is a new monster, or like the flagship monster that they pit you up against, with preset equipment sets and like a
And
20
items.
minute time limit. Say that. Say it
Oh,
again.
and like preset items. So like they set you up for the hunt.
Yeah, basically. So you don't necessarily have to know about the setup side of Monster Hunter to get to try the demo out, though I would argue that that is an essential piece to the experience that the demo doesn't really get to share with you. Um, so I would say, like, if you like the combat, definitely give Monster Hunter a try, but Monster Hunter is way more than just the fighting.
I mean, the between quest time can range from like 5 minutes if you really like know exactly what you need before you go back out, up to like an hour. If you really like, if people are scrambling, everyone's kind of checking to see what they can upgrade, what they need to grab, if they have a better armor set for it.
Or like figuring out what skills they want to put together for the next hunt. Yeah, it's really deep. So I'm excited for once again Monster Hunter to get another chance to kind of resonate with gamers, especially on a platform that is so widely adopted right now. And off the heels of the best-selling game in the Monster Hunter series, I think this is going to be a very successful entry.
They're taking it in very fun directions. Every time they make these major like changes to the gameplay, like it only like increases the enjoyment out of it.
Yeah.
I am curious to see how well this game is going to do. Because obviously World was popular. And I think that's partially due to probably some prejudice towards the series, given that, the last like console release was on the Wii. And then it, kind of languished on the 3DS. Always did well in Japan,
Yeah.
but most people weren't willing to like kind of get into a game that was this hardcore and you could put that many hours into, like on a 3DS. And then so it probably drew in a lot of more mature gamers, with a release that was, on their consoles and on PC that was also really pretty.
Yeah.
Um, so it'll be interesting to see how many of those people continue on with the series and give this one a try. I'd also be interested in like, okay, of all the millions of people who bought Monster Hunter World, like what does the usage look like, right? Did a lot of people kind of give up after a bit? Was the kind of intro accessible enough to get them to the point where they were really enjoying things? They certainly made like a lot of accessibility changes,
Yeah.
and like and that's not necessarily saying like, oh, like color blindness and all this stuff, but like, you know, we talk
Actually
about like,
jumping into it and like
well,
figuring out
yeah,
what
and
you're
then
doing.
like other things that used to be really obtuse, like the way that skills stacked in games previous to World, and that changed with this entry. I think for the better. It
Yeah.
also made everything kind of more useful, and a little more straightforward. As before, like talking to you guys about how when you guys got into Monster Hunter, that you didn't know that you had to stack it to 10 before a skill even activated.
Yeah, I had no idea how it worked.
And so just changing that makes that more accessible and makes like, oh, I'm actually doing something and something's actually happening. And it's clearly communicated to me what I'm doing. Damage numbers were another thing. So it seems like, in the development of World, which obviously was happening a little bit before Ryze, but Ryze has been in development for quite some time at this point now. That they were working hand in hand to like figure out like, how do we bring this franchise into this decade,
And fortunately, like a lot of the stuff that came out of World, like the item wheel, being able to use items while you're moving, that kind of stuff is returning in Monster Hunter Rise. So we are keeping those major steps forward, and I think that is absolutely for the better.
Also, it's good to know that like the Switch is powerful enough to one look a heck of a lot better than say like Generations Ultimate, which was a 3DS game ported to
To its credit,
to the
it was a
Switch.
3DS game.
Right. But that it can still pull off things like, okay, you load in the hunting area, right? But the individual areas in between, you don't need those loading zones anymore. Which is something like, well, was the Switch going to be able to do that? And of course, now we know that, yeah, it can do that, while also looking significantly better than the 3DS games, which is, again, the game doesn't need to look amazing to be an amazing game. We know this.
It looks better than I would have expected, though, which I am very surprised by.
Yeah. So maybe that has something to do with the fact that they've changed engines,
And what a game to change engines with. Like, rather than doing it on the HD systems, I say that as if Switch is an HD, but like from the 4K systems and then going down to the HD system, and they're like, let's use a better engine now.
Yeah. I mean,
but
they've worked on like iterations of what is it, MT Framework or whatever.
For most of the series' life, it's been MT Framework.
Yeah, it's different iterations of it. Yeah.
But now we're on RE Engine, which is awesome because the RE Engine's incredible. Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 2, 3, upcoming 8, they look fantastic, and you can see
For sure
that working in this game's favor.
Mm-hmm.
So Monster Hunter Rise officially launches on March 26th, just 5 days before Nintendo Thanos snaps like half of their content catalog. So if you need something to play, you can play that. Let's see, what do we have next? Another surprise Capcom announcement that I'm not entirely sure how I fall on yet is the Capcom Arcade Stadium, which is a compilation of a bunch of Capcom arcade games. You can download the software for free. It comes with a free download for 1943, The Battle of Midway, but then you can purchase other packs of the remaining games in the set. So, like, if you don't want specific arcade games, you don't have to buy those. The thing is like, I don't think that the pricing model has been detailed yet, so I don't really know how I feel about this, to be honest with you.
I think it'll be easier for us to say how we feel about it. We know exactly what we're going to be getting and for how much.
Yeah. Because, like,
right now, like saying, oh, hey, you're getting a free game, like, that's cool. I'll take it. I don't want them to think I won't, but depending on how much they want me to pay for other games, might not be as cool.
Yeah, that's a big question. I do love that they're selling Super Street Fighter 2 again.
I think this set has like at least 3 versions of Street Fighter 2 in it.
I'm wondering if that's why they did it, because they knew in their heart of hearts that they could get away with selling a Street Fighter 2 again. I'm on to you,
Street Fighter 2
Capcom.
has been sold on Switch in so many different formats.
I mean, it was, what was it, close to being a launch game, or maybe it was a launch game for Switch?
The HD edition.
Yeah.
It was in the first few months of its life at least. But I mean the difference here is like this is a true arcade emulation rather than like a port. So like you can give it credit from that regard. Also I have to say I love the artwork. Kind of this like Rhythm Heaven bubbly style with all of the different Capcom arcade games being shown here.
Mm-hmm.
It looks good.
Yeah. I think if the price is reasonable, I might pick up a few packs, ones that might appeal to me more specifically. Like Strider or some of the Street Fighters. But yeah, it just really depends on how the pricing works out.
Yeah, again, like I'm trying to read the description on the Nintendo website of how like this is happening. And I'm just not exactly sure.
Oh, there's
so it
3
looks
packs.
like, okay,
Yeah.
well, there's 3 packs, but there's okay, so you get 1943 Battle of Midway. And then you can get the 3 packs, which include 10 games each. And then in addition to that,
I think the trailer showed what were in the packs.
Well,
you're right.
Probably. And then it says add to your collection with the Ghosts and Goblins standalone add-on. So Ghosts and Goblins is separate.
I think that is definitely because they're releasing Resurrection. Does Resurrection have a classic port of Ghosts and Goblins in it? Do we know that? Because if that's the case, I understand why.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't think we have that yet.
And they probably want people to buy that instead anyway.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're going to get more information on the pricing here soon because it comes out in February.
Yeah, they can't wait too long. I'm sure it'll be fine. Like, knowing that the packs are 10 games, if that's like $4.99, you know, that seems like a good price to me. I'm not going to complain about that. Especially, like, you know, if you get a couple Street Fighter games, Bionic Commando, there's good stuff in here.
Mm-hmm.
I think people also, too, like, with the NES Online, are like less prone to be interested in stuff like this because Nintendo has been handing it out for free with a subscription, of course, but
right.
I don't know. I think there's something kind of classy about arcade emulation because it's something that has only been recently done a lot, even like from Nintendo's standpoint, because we had never gotten like an arcade release of Mario Bros or Donkey Kong just until the Switch came out. So there's a resurgence happening, and I think that's fine. This last story, I noticed while setting up the show, and I was a little bit surprised by this, I have to say. Nintendo Switch has been the best-selling console in the United States for 24 straight months, including November when the new consoles came out, and that's really where it gets me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really surprised by this, and I'm not honestly that surprised by it outselling PS5 and Series X as well. And one of the reasons that is, at the very least, is that Nintendo like has been catching up with their production.
Yeah,
you know, for like months now, and they've
been dealing with it this whole year, not just the last couple months.
Yeah.
True.
And so it, on top of that, the PS5 and Series X, like, they can't keep up with demand. like if they could keep up with demand, chances are that, you know, it would probably outpace the Switch, at least for its their opening month,
Through
maybe
like
the next,
Christmas.
yeah, and Christmas and whatnot. But that being said, again, like the supply chain for the Switch is just more developed, and they've been building on top of it. And they've been selling this, right? They've
Yeah.
gotten like all the kinks of production out of the way. Whereas these new consoles, they're still very much in production, and they probably are still having issues here and there. Um,
I
and
mean,
so I
taking a
think
step
that's
back even
definitely
further,
a big
there's
reason.
even it's $200 cheaper than the others. We're getting
Yeah.
into the holiday season. They're designed to have multiple Switches per household, so there's possibly households that are adopting even more Switches, especially with kids at home, summer months.
And the Switch Lite, which is an even cheaper model.
Oh yeah.
Like they were going to sell more than the other two.
Yeah. And I mean, it's still impressive. It always shocks me to look at it and just see how that this this system's going to beat out the Wii when it's all said and done. And I never thought that would happen again. I'm going to be honest. Especially
I
after
mean,
the Wii U.
again, like going back to the fact that like the plan was to have multiple Switches per household. It is a more personal like device than say like, oh, like my PS4 sits downstairs at, you know, the TV, and if somebody else wants to play PS4, they don't necessarily need their own PS4.
Right.
I mean, that's technically true for the Switch as well. But with the Switch, you know, being able to take it around is part of like the appeal. So having your own, so having like everybody having their own Switch Lite, is part of the appeal. And you look at like sales figures for something like the Nintendo DS, which is one of the best selling systems of all time, you know, even more so than the Wii by like 50 million units. And then you also consider the fact that since the Wii, you know, the Wii probably brought in a lot of like more casual gamers. And if you are a more casual gamer, chances are you're going to go with the Switch. It's more versatile. It's got the more friendly, you know, family friendly games. It's got the more like, oh, like you got a freaking Animal Crossing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I was listening to like a GVG episode, and they were all talking about how, you know, Animal Crossing got, you know, their parents into gaming. They only have one game, and it's Animal Crossing. It's like, you know, having a Wii at like an assisted living or nursing home, right? It's just they're some of these older demographics, they're not going out to purchase a PS5 so they can play Demon's Soul,
For
you
sure.
know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And Nintendo is definitely going to double down on that multiple Switch per household idea going into next year. If assuming all these Nintendo Switch Pro rumors are true, which as it stands, I am fairly confident they are. And I mean, I can prove that just, you know, via myself, because I'm going to buy a Switch Pro when it comes out, and now I'm going to have 3 Switches in my house. So yeah, I am interested in seeing how this all plays out, especially at the end of the Switch's life. I also wonder like how long Nintendo is going to keep the Switch like in rotation. How long is this life cycle? Because I think after March of next year, the Switch has officially been out longer than the Wii U was before the Switch came out. Or was that? It was like 4.5 years, I think, was the Wii U's life cycle, wasn't it? Something like that.
That sounds about right.
So
it was the duration of college,
console,
basically. So the Switch is about to pass that up, and Nintendo console life cycles are typically between 5 and 6 years, but I don't see that being the case this time.
Well, I think we're in a different era where companies are making new iterations that kind of make that like half step to extend the life cycle a little bit longer.
Yeah, especially
Yeah,
Xbox.
and then I think on top of that, I'm pretty sure we have like interviews and statements from Nintendo executives that they anticipate that the Switch life cycle will be longer. And we saw that with the 3DS. Now the 3DS was kind of a rare case because it kind of carried Nintendo amidst the disaster that was the Wii U.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, oh god, how many revisions did the 3DS get? It had the 3DS, we had the 3DS XL, we
2DS.
had the new the 2DS, the new Nintendo 3DS, and then the new Nintendo 2DS.
And the new Nintendo 2DS XL and the new Nintendo 3DS XL.
What a family
Yes.
of consoles.
So that's
Yes.
7 versions of the 3DS.
Just about. We might be off by one, but it's too much work to keep track of. Right? So like and I think with the Switch, like we're going to see that new Nintendo Switch. So I think we're going to see that second revision. Technically fourth revision, but the other one was kind of a soft revision with the extended battery life.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then we have the Switch Lite. So if we get something that kind of makes up for some of the bottlenecks, an increase in memory that brings the performance of a lot of these games to a more stable place, that would be great. I'd love to see stable 30 and 60 FPS in some of these games.
There's a channel called Modern Vintage Gamer. I think we were at work when I was watching this specific video, where he had increased the clock speed of the Nintendo Switch's CPU, using like proprietary software and just doing it on his own. And he was making games like The Witcher 3 and I think even Age of Calamity run at solid frame rates. I think in some cases 60 frames per second, just by increasing the Switch's clock speed. And clearly it's not set higher because there's heating issues and battery life problems. But so like even fixing those kinds of things in a Switch Pro revision, we're gonna get a fair amount of performance out of what we already have in the system. So I think it's fair to say that the next version of the Switch, while it might not be monumental, we don't know, should be enough to increase a lot of the games that we currently have. And Nintendo's like at this point too, especially with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, where they're 8K capable, and the Switch still doesn't do 4K video. Nintendo has reportedly asked developers to make their games 4K ready. I assume that they're going to achieve that via DLSS, which is an NVIDIA AI that increases resolution with very minimal GPU performance. So I don't think the new Switch is going to be like a huge revision in terms of what's inside of it. I think it's going to be a lot of software, better battery life, and a new cooling system, and they're going to use all of those things together to make a Switch that just works better.
But also something to consider, that even if they decide that, a few years down the line that there is a Switch successor, what's the likelihood that it's going to be backwards compatible with all the Switch titles, right? And so if we have a situation in which I can just take my my Switch games and I can play them on my Switch successor, the Switch 2, the Super Switch, outside of the new Nintendo Switch.
The Nintendo Switch D4.
Yeah, so I can just download or pop in my cartridge, and these games are already ready, to be in 4K and whatnot. You
actually just reminded me of one of the new updates we got in the recent firmware update for the Switch. You can tell your games to automatically back up and download to multiple systems. So like one of the issues with cloud save data backup is like if you had two Switches, you had to do that manually every time you wanted to like take your Switch Lite out with you and carry on your progress from your main Switch. But now there's built-in functionality to make that process automatic, and I feel like that is definitely in preparation for the next model of the system. Because now people who only have a Nintendo Switch, if they buy a Switch Pro and don't get rid of their current one, they're going to use their regular Nintendo Switch as their portable system. So like this is the perfect time to implement something like that.
Yes.
But I anticipate this will happen by March. And I mean like be
Just
in our
in time
hands.
for Monster Hunter.
Yeah. Just in time for Monster Hunter. I feel like Monster Hunter is the game that they're going to ship this with. Last time this happened with new Nintendo 3DS, it shipped with Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. It also had The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. I don't think there will be a Zelda game to go along with it, but there might be a Metroid Prime trilogy.
Ooh.
I think there will be at least one first-party software that goes alongside the release, and they're going to hit that March 26th date. But I don't think it'll be too long before we find out about that. I don't think it'll be any more than like 5 or 6 weeks. Definitely by the end of January, because we're running out of time.
I mean, I hope that's the case because, again, like just talking about some of the shortcomings of the Switch, if there is, in addition to some, again, some revisions to make up for bottlenecks, and then maybe some changes in terms of the feel of the actual feel of the console.
Yeah.
And maybe its build quality. I'd love an increase in build quality as well. That would be cool. And if this is the case, if they release this new version, I could honestly see this version just kind of replacing the old Switch, like just keeping it at an even 300, dropping the price of all these other Switches that are out there, $50 to $100, and getting rid of the stock, and then just having this new Nintendo Switch
Which would
Pro,
probably encourage people who like are deterred by the price tag to adopt, because even the Lite being $200, you make the like original Switch 250, 200, whatever. That might just be like another selling point for them.
But again, I think the reason that they would do that is like they would either slow production down with that model, or they'd end, just kind of gradually phase it out and just have this, new, because eventually that's what happened with the 3DS eventually.
That's
they
what I was about
stopped
to say.
selling the original versions, and they just sold the new Nintendo 3DS. But at that point, like they could have adjusted prices.
But they are absolutely going to sell through that current model stock, and they might even produce it for like an extra year, maybe year and a half, just to kind of have like a 3-pillar system. Just to make the ecosystem as easy to get into as possible, before eventually, like you said, phase that out. Because like if they're making a Pro, chances are they're making a Nintendo Switch Lite Pro too, or at some point they'll introduce that.
If they do that, I hope that Switch Lite comes with a dongle. Because, man, how cool would it be to just be able to plug your Switch Lite into the TV as well? And just, there it is. There's your Switch, Smaller in form factor, but then it still connects to the TV.
I think there's a possibility for that. It really depends on how Nintendo sees the Switch Lite. Maybe if there's a Switch Lite Pro, they release a version in Japan that doesn't dock, because I see that performing better in that territory than here. And then we get maybe a more expensive version of the Switch Lite Pro that you can dock into your TV somehow.
Or maybe like a more portable dock or something that like
a dock revision
plays into the portability of it.
Yeah.
There was that rumor that they were going to stop producing docks in the UK.
I thought that was true.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, that was a rumor. But if it is true, and that just plays more into the fact that maybe this revision is on its way, and that it's also they're just going to stop producing that model of dock in general to prepare for a new model of the dock, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little bit different. Maybe it's still compatible with old models of the Switch, but then maybe I don't know. Like
Build in
even
the
with like
Ethernet port.
yeah, right. But also like
More
maybe
USB.
like I can't imagine that the Switch Lite, doesn't have capabilities to connect to the TV, not because of any like hardware or like software thing. It's like it's literally like yeah, maybe it's just like on a software like side
I
that
do
they
believe
just
it actually
disable that.
is it is hardware that it prevents it from docking. And I've seen that on some YouTube channels that had run some tests. I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure it is a hardware issue
Okay.
rather than a software check. That said, like in a revised Switch Lite, maybe that changes.
Right, right. Well, because I was also thinking like maybe there is a dock that's designed to accept both like a larger Switch and like a Switch Lite. So you could have like one dock, but it would work for either.
Or you get a dock that does that, but also has 2 ports, so you can dock 2 switches in it at the same time. But yeah, we could go on and on about what Nintendo's Switch revisions will look like coming into the next year.
We gotta save it for the podcast after they announce it.
Yeah, so I think that's
Well,
gonna
then
do
we'll
it.
know.
Well, now then we can talk about it. I mean, I'd love
Talk about it
speculating as much as the
sometime.
next guy. But that's pretty much it for Nintendo stuff this week. We will be back again next Friday night to talk about Sephiroth and Mr. Sakurai Presents. Hopefully Sephiroth is out and available. But until then, you can follow me at Merrowleaf_. You can follow Paul at Gunnysaurus, and you can follow Logan at LoggyDubs. Or you can follow us as a collective at Breakroom Arcade. Make sure to join our Discord server. There's a link to that below. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe.
Subscribe.
Make sure to subscribe to find out when we go live next and any other videos that we make. But until then, we will see you next Friday. Don't break your backs, break in the games. But for now, break time is over.